conductive wire, and you were so electric. I had no say when you came so near.
Hey everyone, welcome to Geekdom is back. We are talking all about 2018 in film with Mitchell McDonald today. Mitchell, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. I just woke up, got a very big day ahead of me. I have nothing going on today. How are you, Deanna?
I'm good. I'm very ready to talk about some movies because I think I did a somewhat better job in 2018 of actually going out to see things than I did in 2017 when we last did one of these. So, I had bought a movie pass subscription at the tail end of 2017. So it was one of those things where at the end of the year, I fit a bunch of stuff in, but the beginning part of the year, not so much. So having a movie subscription service thing in all of 2018 made it a better year for me for movies.
Yeah, definitely. I think, the beginning of the year always starts out, there's not a ton of movies anyway. So especially right now in January, there's nothing out unless you count all of the award stuff that's getting wider and wider releases that people are trying to catch up on. But as far as new releases, I'm looking at the calendar and I'm sheesh. There's not a lot. I don't even know what's coming out. I just know the Lego Movie 2 is coming out in February. That's the first thing I'm excited for. And there's some other stuff. But it's kind of, since I watch a lot of the smaller indie movies, I don't really know which ones of those are going to be the ones I want to see until later in the year, or summer at least is when those really start to hit, weirdly enough. So, but yeah, I have Movie Pass too. I had it for the since it launched, and I still have it. I'm really the only person I know who's still consistently using Movie Pass. Everyone else has kind of moved on.
Yeah, I moved on to the AMC A-list. It's not the closest theater, but it's only 3 miles away, so it wasn't a huge deal. I just go over there and go see everything. And that one gives you 3 movies a week, but you can also use it for IMAX and Dolby and not pay a difference. And 3D, I guess, but I have never wanted to go see a movie in 3D, so, But yeah, that is our quick update on movie subscription services. I don't even really know what to call them. So that's what I'm calling them.
That's fine. I think that's good. The AMC one, we also found out yesterday, you get a priority. You get your own line when you go to the theater. They have your own line for tickets and for concessions, which we took advantage of because my friend just switched to it and we went to an AMC last night. But yeah, we just found that out. So that's fun too if you want to feel superior.
They advertise it literally at the beginning of every single movie now too, so it kind of amazes me that people go to AMC and don't have it.
Yeah, I wonder how long it's going to stick for, that one, if MoviePass really is about to disappear, how long they're going to be oh, do we still need this? We killed the main competitor. So, but I think he said that at least for this year it should be fine. So that's cool.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's just one of those things where you kind of just have to wait it out. I got too frustrated with MoviePass. It was you can only see it at this time that you don't want to go.
Yeah, it's bad. I don't know why. I don't know if I should be putting this out there, but for some reason mine is still working for I think it has something to do with I canceled my subscription and then restarted it. But because I had the year, and then once I restarted it, it just works for every screening of every movie at most theaters.
Nice.
And I don't know why that is, and I hope it doesn't stop. But and it doesn't it doesn't limit me to 3. I don't know why this is happening. I'm the only person that I know this happened for, so I can't really. I'm sorry, but I'm gonna ride that out until whoever fixes that glitch.
Yeah, I think we could go ahead and jump into our list now. Though you did a top 20 and I did a top 10, so I am going to let you start. Why don't we do your 20 through 15, because we do have some overlap there between my top list and my honorable mentions, so I think that is a good place to start.
Yeah, we can just talk about the movies that we liked. We can just spill out our list, but really we can just talk about whichever ones that we both liked, or whichever ones we really want to evangelize to each other, Okay, so starting at number 20, I have Widows, I have Searching at number 19, then Avengers Infinity War, Teen Titans Go to the movies, Shoplifters, and Mission Impossible Fallout. And I think a bunch of those are on your list.
Yeah, it's funny that Widows happens to be my number 2, but I think I just really liked heist movies this year. I don't know what it was between that, Ocean's 8, and even including Solo as a heist movie. It's like, I was like, yes, I am having a fun time watching these, even though, they might not be super great. Obviously, I thought Widows was better than the other two, but I think a lot of that had to do with the casting in that one.
Mm-hmm.
And
oh my God. Yeah.
It was just fantastic. I was like, I love everything about this. And I just want to note real quick, out of my top 10, there's only one that is rated 3.5 stars that I kind of pushed ahead of a couple that I had rated 4 stars, and that's A Quiet Place. And I think it's because I like that movie more than I thought I did. And now that I've had lots of time to sit with it, I'm like, maybe I need to go change that rating.
I have a tough time with horror movies, I think, because I don't know. There has to be, I have to really buy into the premise. And I feel like that doesn't necessarily speak to the quality of the movie always.
Right.
But like sometimes like I'll watch like a really good horror movie, but something will like make me laugh and it'll totally destroy like my ability to like feel the tension in it. So I kind of don't have a good sense of it. Also, I didn't really watch horror movies until I was like late high school, college.
Okay.
Because I was always scared of them. And then like it immediately went from being super scared to like not scared at all and just thinking they're funny. So there's only a handful that I really like. We'll talk about one of them later because I think it is pretty high on both of our lists. Two. I don't know if the other one. We'll get there. But Widows was really good. It was like it was like trying to take like a very pulpy, very like grimy kind of subject and just do it with like the highest, like classiest, most like prestigious elements when you have like Viola Davis, Liam Neeson, all these other actors being characters in this movie. That's really like a small time kind of movie because it's just about like campaign to be alderman in Chicago, which I don't know how much power that, but it's not even like mayor. It's just like this like person who kind of runs this one tiny district in Chicago is
right.
like is what the plot kind of centers along, but it's really about like what it would take for these normal people who wouldn't commit crimes, like what would have to happen in their lives for them to pull off this heist, like Viola Davis, Elizabeth Debicki, and Michelle Rodriguez. I'm just remembering, I loved Elizabeth Debicki in this movie.
Yeah.
She's fucking incredible. She's also in another one of my movies that I'll talk about a little bit later. But I think this was a great year for her. I think she is very, very, very tall. And
and they used it in this movie. Usually they're trying to hide it. I think the first thing I saw her in was when she was in The Night Manager.
Okay, I didn't watch that.
And I think they tried to hide it a little there. And it was one of those things where it was really noticeable in this movie. And I think it's partially because the other actresses aren't too terribly tall, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, it looks like she was she was like the golden girl in Guardians 2. She was in Great Gatsby. She was in who is she in Valerian? It doesn't matter. That movie's crazy. But yeah, she was really great in it. Cynthia Erivo was really good in it. I just watched Bad Times at the El Royale, and she was really good in that too. And then oh my God, fucking Daniel Kaluuya in this movie was so scary. Jesus Christ. I mean, I could kind of tell what he was doing with it in this movie, like when he was getting all up in that dude's face and then just like point blank just shot him at one point while he was rapping. But I thought he was just incredibly effective, and he really is just a super talented actor that can kind of do whatever you need him to do in a film. Obviously, Get Out, he was so good and so effective in that. And then this, he's kind of going to the opposite side of the spectrum, where he's like the villain, where he's like the terrifying dude. But he was great. Also, Brian Tyree Henry is in a bunch of, I think, the movies on my list, and he's also in Atlanta. So he had a friggin' huge year, even though he kind of has really kind of bit parts in all of these movies. He really tied himself to some quality stuff this year. He really, whoever is picking projects for him really is nailing it with Widows, Spider-Man, and he's in Beale Street too. Yeah, just this cast in this movie is just completely nuts. I have to shout out my favorite my favorite thing I saw about Widows was this one guy I follow on Letterboxd, my friend's friend. His name is Barrier. He posted this review that's like 5 stars, and it's just 2 dudes sitting in a boat pretending not to be Irish. Or maybe it was Scottish. Are they Scottish? Colin Farrell and Liam Neeson?
I don't recall. It's somewhere over there.
It's one of those, but it just cracked me up. I thought it was so funny. But yeah, I'll talk about some of the other ones. Searching is a movie that follows John Cho playing this single father. He has a daughter who's in like either late middle, early high school, and she goes missing. And it is him kind of trying to figure out what happened to her. The whole movie, the thing of the movie, it's all shot on screens. The whole movie is on like computer screens and television screens. And it's like, if you ever see him, you can hear him, but if you ever see him, it's like him on FaceTime with somebody. So that like it's very, very, it's kind of, I know there's a movie called like Unfriended that kind of does this.
Yeah.
But I think this is much more like grounded and much more watchable and not hokey, and like takes the concept and really uses it creatively, because the camera kind of pans and zooms over. So you're not just like staring at just a screen, just like a static screen and just like watching someone click around. It's really like the camera is like zooming in on stuff and making you read stuff. And like, it's really, really well done. I really thought it was a super engaging and interesting movie, and I like to see, like, I think there were a lot of movies that were interfacing with the internet in interesting ways this year, and I think filmmakers are finally kind of getting around that, trying to figure out what to do in situations with that, like whether it's like that or Eighth Grade or Ralph Breaks the Internet. I think there were a lot of movies that tangled with the internet this year and did well with it.
Yeah, this was one I didn't get the chance to see.
You'll see it.
It's on my list to get to eventually. And there are, I want to say, 5 or 6 movies on your list that I was like, I had every intention of watching this, but either I didn't get to the theater in time. Like I know The Favorite is one you've been telling me to watch. And I looked one day and I was like, oh, okay, it already left the theater by me. So
what? That sucks.
Yeah, it left last week, that and Ben is Back. I was planning on seeing those 2, and I was like, I had already seen 2 movies earlier in the week, so I would have had to pick between one anyway, but then I didn't have time to go see either, so I was like, oh, all right, bye.
We can like talk. I don't know how much you've talked about like the big actiony superhero ones. Like if I think you've probably had other podcasts for them, but we can like go over those if you want.
Yeah, I did do an episode on Infinity War and Mission Impossible Fallout, so I probably don't have to say too much about those, because those are, one obviously is one of the biggest superhero movies of the year, and then Mission Impossible is one of the biggest just action movies in general of the year. And
yeah, I just watched Fallout. It lived up to the hype, I'd say.
It's fun.
Yeah, it's a thrilling movie. And then my friend who I was watching it with is like, that's like one of his favorite movies of the year. And he was just telling me like all the stories about like the production for it and how they had to like shoot everything like as it was happening, and like how Tom Cruise broke his leg, and how he was riding the motorcycles like without any safety stuff, or how they had to film that whole jump sequence.
He's a little crazy.
Oh my God, he is full of insane Scientologist space pope energy and just is willing to die for our entertainment, but can't.
Yeah, that's basically the gist of it. And I think the one that I really want to talk about quickly here, though, is Teen Titans Go to the Movies, because I enjoyed that movie way more than I thought I would, and it made my honorable mentions just because I was lazy and didn't do a top 20. But if I did a top 20, all of my honorable mentions would have been in there.
Oh my God. So I love Teen Titans Go. I think it's reminiscent of, now Aquaman and Wonder Woman have shown that they can like actually make hit movies out of their characters without Zack Snyder. But I think that between Teen Titans Go and Lego Batman last year, I think that like DC was just kind of trying to just be like, okay, well, our huge hits aren't going to work, so maybe we can make hits out of movies that just completely take them to task and completely just parody those movies, because that's what Lego Batman and Teen Titans have kind of done, and it's just been so fun and funny to watch these movies. Teen Titans Go, I was really excited for when it was coming out. I hadn't watched the show, the new show. I had watched the old show because that was a big thing in my generation. I really liked it, but I kept seeing trailers for this, and I was like, this looks fun. And then I watched it, and it's very hilarious. It's kind of like, I'd say it's like Looney Tunes for superheroes, or like Deadpool for kids, is how I would kind of sell this movie, because a lot of people I feel like have this negative view of Teen Titans Go, especially like people our age, because they grew up watching the original Teen Titans show, and this is it's weird for a show to get rebooted and come back aiming younger. I feel like that always kind of rubs people the wrong way when shows do that. So I think that kind of put a lot of people off. But it is made, you can tell it's made with a lot of love and knowledge and care for this universe of characters. And I think it's because it's something that's been around for so long, they feel like, okay, we can make jokes that people are going to like about this. And I don't know, I really thought it was just it's very cheesy and like very aiming very low, but it's so funny and fun, and has like, I took friends that like didn't like superheroes at all, and they had a blast watching it. And so I think that if you like superheroes at all, or if you like just like good, fun, fast animation, that it's definitely worth checking out. Even if you hate Teen Titans Go, I think this movie might have a chance to win you over. And I think if you listen to this podcast, you probably have some kind of affiliation to superheroes in some way. So I think that if you listen to this podcast, you could watch it, even if it's just to be a completist. But I think it'll surprise you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was literally sitting in the theater just laughing so much during this movie. And
it's so funny, and it moves so fast.
Yeah, I would definitely watch this one again, probably.
Yeah,
if it ends up on, like Netflix or Hulu or something. I haven't looked for it specifically, but if it ends up somewhere and I'm just bored one day, I could definitely see this just being put on in background noise, background entertainment.
So mad the other day. My friend went to Redbox and he rented a couple movies. He got Split and he got Smallfoot, and I was so mad he made us watch Smallfoot instead of watching Teen Titans again. But maybe if they do more, maybe if I get another Redbox code, we'll watch it. But other stuff in here quickly. Shoplifters is a Japanese film that is about, it's directed by Hirokazu Koreeda, and it's about this very impoverished family that finds this young girl kind of outside by herself, and kind of takes her in, and it's kind of about their family living in poverty, and it's like a very wonderful, emotional, like very humanistic kind of journey that you go on with them, and just how like their family like was brought together. Everyone kind of has their different story, and they've all kind of found each other, and it's really sweet. And I think it's one of the movies that it was just nominated for the Golden Globe for foreign. I think it would have won if Roma weren't in there, because Roma is really the big movie for go-to awards movie this year. But I think it was really wonderful and really heartwarming and very emotionally poignant. That's a great movie. Check it out if you can. There was another one called Burning that was out that I also saw. That's a Korean film. It's very different, but both of them were some of the better. I also saw Cold War, which is the Polish, I think, nominee. I don't know. All these will probably be in talks for the foreign film Oscar. They were all really good. I could have interchanged. Like I was looking at my list, and like my number like 17 through like 25 could have all been interchangeable. There wasn't really a lot separating them. I just kind of put the ones I wanted to talk about and that. So yeah, check that out, and then we can move on. Should I do my
14 through 11? Then
we have Madeline's Madeline, Sorry to Bother You. Number 12 is Game Night, and number 11 is The Tale. Did you see those?
I have Game Night in my top 10 because I thought that movie was hilarious. I meant to get to Sorry to Bother You, but yesterday I ended up editing podcasts for like 7 hours and just didn't manage to get to that one, because I thought I was going to get to Black Klansman, but then I checked HBO and it wasn't on there. I thought it was. Maybe I just made that up at some point, or it was there and then it left. But then Sorry to Bother You was on Hulu, so I was like, oh, maybe I'll check that out, and it just did not happen. The Tale is one that's on my watch list, And I don't know anything about Madeline's Madeline.
I think it's on Madeline's is on Canopy and Amazon Prime, I think.
Okay.
I'll talk about that one for just a quick minute. It's a hard movie to talk about, but it's very where do I even start? This is a weird one. This and Sorry to Bother You are big time weird ones. Let me forewarn you a little bit. I don't know if they're gonna appeal to a lot of people. I think Sorry to Bother You has, but Madeline's Madeline is like a very spacey, like very not linear, like jumping around. It's basically about this like teenage girl who joins this theater troupe, and the head of the theater troupe is this older lady, and she kind of becomes obsessed with her in a sense. And it's kind of just about like when you make art of someone's life, like how you're like stealing from them, and how you're interpreting like their struggle, and if it's right to do that. And it's just basically a movie about art and what it means to when you're in charge of other, because I think it's really, the director is kind of like, it's very meta. It's about her process of making movies and how she feels about taking other people and inserting them into that. And it features this just really spellbinding performance by the lead, the teenage girl. Her name is Helena Howard, and she just really goes for it in this movie. It's very hard to describe, but it is really, if you're into like art films or movies that tangle with that at all, I think that this is definitely worth checking out. It's kind of one of those where you'll be like, well, I don't know what to rate that kind of movies, but yeah, I'd say definitely worth checking that one out. I really enjoyed it, and I probably should watch it again because I'm having such a hard time putting words to it. But yeah, it was very good. And then Sorry to Bother You is this friggin' gonzo movie that's like really addressing like what it's like to live in this like post-capitalist nightmare. It's very, everything that happens in it is very heightened. It's kind of like an Adult Swim it's like an Adult Swim-esque kind of sense of humor, but it's about Lakeith Stanfield, also from Atlanta, my favorite show of the year, plays this guy who gets a telemarketing job. And he learns that the way to be successful is to use your quote unquote white voice, which is like so he gets a voiceover from like David Cross,
right,
when he's selling stuff to other people, and it kind of follows this wacky journey that he goes on regarding that. And it has an incredible cast. It has a lot of wacky, wild twists and turns that I'm going to try not to spoil for you here, but it is certainly one of the most fun and what the fucky movies of the year, and I just love it to bits. I love that we're seeing very weird and creative movies like this and Madeline's Madeline in the theaters this year. And this got like a weirdly kind of big release. Like I saw it at like one of the bigger theaters by me, and I thought that was really tight. But yeah, Sorry to Bother You is one of my favorite comedies, one of my favorite just like critiques of capitalism going on right now. And it really feels like the director is Boots Riley, who I think is like a former, or maybe he still is, a rapper. And he really, if he made a movie like it was the only movie he was going to make. Like he made a movie like he was robbing a bank. He crams so many ideas and flourishes and different weird shit into this movie that I hope I'm not overstating it, but it is quite a ride. And it also has Armie Hammer in it, who plays like a Jeff Bezos-esque CEO character that's really fun. Steve Yeun is in it. It's great. That movie rules so hard. I don't think it'll be for everyone, just like Madeline's Madeline, but I really enjoyed it. Oh man, we are taking up so much time and we haven't even gotten to the top 10 yet. Holy shit.
It's fine. Before we dive into the top 10, though, I have a couple on my honorable mentions list that we don't necessarily need to talk about, and those two are Ocean's 8 and Halloween. And like I said, I enjoyed heist movies, so that's why Ocean's 8 is there. And Halloween, I guess I like horror more than you do, so it's one of those things where I felt like it was a pretty good continuation from the original 40 years ago. So it was just something that I think a lot of horror fans were going to get into, regardless of, how well made it was. And obviously they could do a lot more with a movie like Halloween in 2018 than they could in 1978. So definitely looked a lot better.
Right on. Yeah, I haven't seen any of the Halloween movies, so I'm not a good person.
I pretty much skipped everything in between. I've seen the original a few times and the new one, and I'm not sure I care to see the other 8, 9, however many are in between.
Yeah, the thing about horror movies is I feel like a lot of them is bad. I think I only like ones that have like really, really good stories or are very like serious and shot well and just have all those things, like a couple of movies that we'll talk about later, and like It Follows, or like something like Cabin in the Woods, which is very meta, and stuff like that. I guess we can talk about Game Night, but that movie is great.
Yeah, I literally spit a ton of water out laughing during this movie, and then I was banned from drinking water because I literally just like couldn't. I tried so hard to swallow the water, and I was like, "This is not happening." And it was at that moment when they were all in the kitchen, and it was after the shooting had happened, the accidental shooting. Rachel McAdams accidentally shoots Jason Bateman. I'm really bad with character names, so we're just going with the actor names right now.
That's fine.
He was like, "Honey, I think you sewed this to my shirt." And it was just how he said it so nonchalantly, and I happened to take a drink of water right then, and it was just like game over.
Oh my God. Yeah, that movie was so good. It's definitely one of the best studio comedies I've seen in I don't know how long. I really like Tag this year, but I think that Tag was like a more tame version of this, and that this was real. Because I think it was rated R, because I feel like there was a lot of R-rated stuff and like the way the violence was done.
Yeah.
But I also just feel like there was just so much care put into it, and it was shot incredibly well. It was neat that they had like the cameras on the car doors sometimes for some of those shots. It was really cool how they used whatever filter they used to make. There were scenes where like it would look like a board game, or like pieces on like a board game, or like a model scale something in that movie. And then just like every scene with Jesse Plemons.
Yeah.
It was so good.
Oh my God.
Oh my God. And did you know that it's the same dog from Game Night and Widows?
Oh, wow. That is amazing. I did not know that.
The little white dog. It's the same dog. What a year for that dog to just get carried around by Jesse Plemons and Viola Davis. Their best movies. Hell yeah.
Yeah, I really hope that they continue doing more movies like Game Night too. I think it's just something Hollywood really needs right now. And even if it's not going to make, 100 million or whatever at the box office, it's one of those things where I think we need movies like this and A Quiet Place that aren't as big budget, but they just sort of take audiences by surprise.
Yeah, I think it's just people taking a lot of care and like just putting a lot of effort into these movies. And that's not to say that like I'm sure every movie that gets made has a lot of care put into it, but just really sincerely trying to be creative with what you're given, even when it's like these big studio movies, I think is really important. When you see people like Game Night or Annihilation or something, or like Spider-Man, to not to spoil anything, but when you see people really pushing what they can do and taking these creative risks that really work out, I think that's super rad and really important to furthering movies and to things being good for movies and stuff like that. But yeah, we gotta. I'll just say one word on The Tale. It is on HBO. It's a very, very heavy watch, but it is very, very essential. It's written, I think, and directed by the subject of the movie. It's about her kind of revisiting her childhood and realize that she was like groomed to be in this like disgusting kind of pedophile type relationship with this older couple, and it's just her, like, she thinks back and she's like, oh, that wasn't that bad, and then she's like looking at all that stuff and she's like, oh fuck. So it's really good. Laura Dern is the star of it. It's her. She plays like the present day version of herself, and then another girl plays like the past version of herself, and it's kind of cut between like her search and then the actual events that happen, and it's like really heavy, but it is like a complete tour de force from this first time. She directed documentaries, but then she directed this movie, which is about her own life. So check that out if you want. It's not for the faint of heart. It has some very it has the stuff that entails what I just said in it. So if that is going to upset you, maybe don't watch it, but I definitely highly recommend it.
Yeah, it's been sitting in my HBO watch list for a while, and
it's hard to convince yourself, like, okay, this is the movie that I'm going to watch tonight.
Yeah, yeah.
It's definitely.
And there are a lot of movies like that came out in 2018. It's just like, okay, I'm going to need some time. And because I had been watching The Sopranos for the first time too, I was like, oh, wow, this show is so heavy. And it's like I would get through a season in like a week or so, and then I would need to take like a 2 or 3 month break in between seasons and then come back to it. So it was one of those things where I was like, all right, I just finished The Sopranos. I need some light movies to watch here. But I do want to get into our top 10 list, and we can just go back and forth here. And obviously we have some that we've already discussed, but your number 10 is one that I have wanted to see, but I haven't noticed that I think it's finally in the theater by me. So
it's getting a wider release right now. I think like the last week or this week, it's going to definitely I think it's going to be at a lot of the theaters.
Yeah, so I think that will be one of the things that I watch this month for sure. But your number 10 is If Beale Street Could Talk. And you mentioned Brian Tyree Henry also being in this. And like you said, he's just having a great year. But you saw this, so I will let you talk about it a little more in depth.
I'll talk about it a little bit. It's this it's very much a very sincere, very straightforward love story between these two Black families in the 70s, I think. And the guy gets imprisoned. He gets accused of committing this crime, and he gets imprisoned right as the woman finds out that she is pregnant, and that is kind of the thrust of the story. I don't think that's a spoiler. And it's just kind of it kind of flashes back to like how they were meeting and like their romance, and then it kind of flashes forward to see like how the families are trying to like help him, or like what they're doing, because it's really about their families and just like the things that love pushes us to do and how it motivates us and how important it is in our lives. And it's from the director of Moonlight, from Barry Jenkins, and I think he makes good movies. He makes incredibly heartfelt, beautifully shot, just movies that I don't feel like I'm seeing every day. And I don't know, I don't know why I feel like this is a hacky thing to say, but I kept comparing. I haven't seen Gone with the Wind, but it felt like I was watching like that kind of movie, like a classic, just like huge sweeping romance that's just completely earnest and completely heartfelt. And it's beautiful and wonderful and has a great score. And yeah, it's definitely, check it out. I hope that it's one of the awardsy nominees.
Regina King just won something.
Yeah, she won for it, right? Yeah. She won the Golden Globe for supporting, and she is very good in this. She is only, I feel like she's in a lot of it. She's very good in this. And Brian Tyree Henry, I think, is only in like one scene in it.
Okay.
But he has it's like a cameo. But yeah, it's great. It's very, very emotionally effective. And I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, my number 10 is You Were Never Really Here, and this is your number 9, so it's kind of perfect right here. And I just watched this based on your recommendation, and I watched it with my parents. They didn't like it nearly as much as I did.
So what'd you think of it?
I really liked how they portrayed the psychological effects that his job has on him, because he's doing the right thing, but he's also doing a lot of horrible things to do the right thing. And you can see that taking a toll on him. And I noticed too, he was stuck in the past a lot.
Yeah.
And you could feel that through not only the flashbacks, but just the music that played the entire movie. It was all, from a certain era.
Yeah, it's just, I think the direction, the first time I watched this, I feel like I was feeling like how you are, but then the second time I was like, oh, fuck, this is a perfect movie. It's just, it doesn't hold your hand at all. It barely gives you a lot of the details. You have to it really is one of the better, like, show, don't tell, because there's barely any dialogue in this movie.
Yeah.
It just of like showing like what he's going through and how he's viewing this world and how he's suffering through PTSD and just the trauma that has engulfed his life. And Joaquin Phoenix gives this very scary, understated performance in this movie, but he is just, it's crazy how he just seems like the largest, scariest bear of a man walking around fucking people up with a hammer in this movie. And yeah, the first time I watched it, I was like, holy shit. But then the second time I watched it, I was like, oh my God, the people were talking about, like, for the second year in a row that there were like no female directors nominated, but like this movie, like, for them to be nominating some of this other shit and not talking about the direction in this movie, it is truly insane.
Yeah.
It's kind of like Madeline is kind of like, if I had to compare it to one other thing on here, I would say it's like this stylistically where you have to really surmise a lot of the stuff that's happening. And then there's like that scene, like this movie does violence in a way that I don't feel like I see in other movies. Just like, it's so heavy and you can really feel everything that's happening. And this is one of the movies I could talk about for a longer time on here. But yeah, it's an incredible film. It's on Amazon Prime and Canopy if anybody hasn't checked it out. It's Joaquin Phoenix, who I think is one of our best actors today. I think he's maybe our best actor out there. And yeah, what an incredible, affecting film.
I like that it wasn't a super long film either. It came in just under an hour and a half, and it's so rare to see that these days. Most movies are pushing 2.5 hours, especially the superhero movies. I think, the next Avengers movie is going to push nearly 3 hours. Ooh. So it's one of those things where I like that people are still able to write and direct movies that don't need to be stretched out to hit that 2-hour mark. I feel like back in the 90s or so, there were a lot of hour-and-a-half movies where you could just sit down and get through something quickly. And then you would also have these like nearly 3-hour movies like The Shawshank Redemption or something where it was worth it. But
now it's kind of everything's in the middle.
Yeah, they did what was best for the story, and now it's just like, oh, let's have all this filler, so we almost hit 2 hours.
Yeah, and there were like a lot of movies that I would be watching this year that would like be like acclaimed or something that I'd be excited for, and they would just go on for like this week I watched Bad Times at the El Royale and what was the other one? Shoot. There was Leave No Trace. And like and I watched Mandy pretty recently too. And like all those films are like really good and have really great things going on in them, but like could have cut at like a half hour out of any of those and they would all be so much tighter and so much better. And it's just like, I know those aren't huge studio movies, but just like whenever I see a movie that's like 90 minutes, I'm just like, it's like I'm already like here for it. I'm like, thank God. It's just, and that movie just uses every second of it. So it's like cut to the bone, but it still is so effective and it still works and it still gives you everything you need for this movie. Yeah, like that, like You Were Never Really Here. So good. Watch it twice.
Yeah.
So going down my list, we talked about, we mentioned Fallout. We talked about game night. Can I talk about Minding the Gap?
Yeah, that is one that I just saved to Hulu. And so I haven't got into that one just yet. But yeah, so quickly here, though, 9 on my list is A Quiet Place, which another movie, very little dialogue. So, and then like you said, Fallout and Game Night, 8 and 7. So your number 8 is Minding the Gap. And that one I've been hearing a lot about. So I'm very interested in just sitting down and watching it hopefully soon. I think this weekend I'm going to try and catch up on some of the things that I can just sit at home and watch and then, figure out what will be in theaters next week, because like you said, if Beale Street Could Talk, that's sort of hitting a wider release now. I'm also
Yeah.
still waiting for Destroyer to hit a wider release.
Yeah, I don't know if what the release for Destroyer is going to be like. I just know it's at the Landmark right now.
Yeah, and I think I would probably count that more as a 2019 release. I know it came out on Christmas in like LA and New York, and that was it. But it's one of those things where I think a couple of these movies actually show up under 2017 on some lists. Like, I know First Reformed is one we'll get to. And when I did my 2018 movies list, it was like not on there. And I was like, oh, that's because it got its release in 2017 technically, but it didn't come out in theaters and like a wider release until 2018. So we're kind of fudging some dates here.
Yeah, it's because like they have all these film festivals, and then they'll screen these movies, and then studios and then critics
Buy
will
them.
see them and rate them then and be like, oh, this is the best movie I saw this year. But then they don't actually get wide releases because they have to get bought, they have to get distributed, whatnot, until later. So yeah, I think a chunk of the movies will not necessarily line up because people on Letterboxd are very specific about that and whatnot.
Yeah.
But yeah, quickly, Minding the Gap is this documentary about 3 friends, or you could say 4 friends, who are all teenage skateboarders in this like Rust Belt town. I think it's in Illinois. I forget exactly the town, but yeah, it's about these 3 kids that kind of ended. One of them decided to start filming them. Bing decides to start filming them, and then he kind of just traces these themes of like abuse and like troubled childhoods that run through their lives. And it's like, it starts out about him just like making this movie about his friends, but then it morphs into like this investigation of like cycles of abuse and childhood trauma and poverty and post-capitalism. And it's just a friggin' gut punch of a movie that is just so emotionally devastating. I would say that anyone could watch this movie and take something from it. Just like, what you don't have to care about skateboarding. If you care about humans at all living in America this year, I think Minding the Gap is an essential watch. And it's you gotta check it out. I think you'd really not necessarily enjoy it, but really feel it.
Yeah, it felt along the lines of mid-90s to me, but in a different style is what I gathered.
I feel like mid-90s is writing this movie because mid-90s I feel like is just kind of taking like a feeling and trying to construct a whole movie about it. I feel like the plot was so kind of like ramshackle in that movie that it wasn't great. It was more just like a feeling in an era. Whether this movie actually like has a story and traces these people's lives over years and like sees them struggle with
way more detailed.
And it's shot so well because like he knows how to shoot the skateboard footage, but he also like is really smart about. There's this scene where the filmmaker is interviewing his mother, where it's like cutting. She's like, they have like all the lights set up for like a traditional interview show format, and then it's like cutting between her and him, like just sitting behind the camera. And it's, oh my God, it's wild.
Yeah.
But yeah, Minding the Gap, probably the best documentary I saw. I think it's really the only one it's the only documentary in my top whatever. So yeah, check it out. It's on Hulu. It's really something. It's really, I hope it wins the award or whatever.
Judging by my love for the Tony Hawk games Once Upon a Time, I think this is definitely something that's right up my alley, because I would go to the Huntington Beach games and watch all the skateboarding there. I've gone to the X Games.
I don't want to undersell it, but it's honestly not really about skateboarding. It's more, you'll see as you watch it, but it's more about what skateboarding means to them and how it has brought them together than it is like about like doing skateboarding, which I feel like mid-90s was more about doing skateboarding.
Or trying to anyway.
But there were parts in this movie that were like so heavy that I was like, oh my God, go back to the skateboarding, bring back the skateboarding, please.
I like things like that though, because it's kind of like sports documentaries. I mean, obviously skateboarding is now an extreme sport, I guess. But, you know, I love watching those things where you just get the chance to see and feel how everyone felt while playing the sport, even if it's not directly about the sport. So this is definitely going to happen this weekend.
Yeah,
I will update you.
sweet. Oh yeah, I'm excited for you to watch it.
Let's go to your number 7 because it is
Oh,
also my number 3 because we've already talked through my 10 through 7 pretty much.
my number 7 is Annihilation. I have a very interesting relationship with this movie. I actually saw it at a preview screening like last summer of 2017. I saw
Okay.
it at a preview screening.
Was it even actually finished by then?
It was.
Okay.
Well, it took so long between that and then when it was actually released that I don't really remember, but I pretty much feel like I saw the same movie. I don't feel like anything really changed between it, which is cool.
I know sometimes they'll show previews and there's still like green screen in it and everything like that. So I was just curious, but that is interesting that it was done so far ahead of time and it still didn't come out until 2018.
It's had a very weird release that some people would say they bungled. I actually also went to the Hollywood premiere of it, which was awesome, in Westwood, and we saw Natalie Portman. She was like talking to these people sitting behind us, and we were freaking out. But yeah, Annihilation is this. It's from the director of Ex Machina, and it's this wild sci-fi drama that involves this all-female team of scientists led by Natalie Portman. It's Natalie Portman, Gina Rodriguez, Tessa Thompson, and who is the Jennifer Jason Leigh. And it's them kind of going into this like alien area.
Yeah.
That's like a swamp called the Shimmer, where everyone's DNA starts to get wacky. It's kind of, if you saw Ex Machina, it's treading similar territory, but I feel like doing it on a grander, more on a bigger scale. And it's not a perfect movie, I would say, but it is, like, as far as like intelligent sci-fi goes, it is that movie. It is so kick-ass and it is so creepy and like I don't know. Do you have anything else you want to add?
I think it's actually a good thing that this didn't go completely in the same direction that the book that it's based off of did, because I think just visually this movie is so stunning, and I didn't even necessarily mind the changes from the book because I had read the book. I don't remember if I did so before or after the movie, but I did so at some point. I forget when I read things because there's so many to remember, but it's one of those things where I think as far as visuals go, this is probably my second favorite movie visually of 2018, and the first one we are going to talk about later because it is on both of our lists, but it was just so stunning, and I think they did put together a very nice cast for it. And I feel like anything that Tessa Thompson is in now is automatically just getting like an extra star from me. So
you want to talk about people having moments. She just is in everything right now. She's in the Creeds. She was just in Thor last year. She's in Sorry to Bother You. She's in Annihilation. She's going to be in that Men in Black.
Yeah.
It's coming, that new Men in Black movie. Also,
I'm actually kind of looking forward to that.
That looks fine, but I'm sure it'll be fun. But yeah, she's also just friggin' out here killing it, and she is. Yeah, I feel like every time I see her, I'm seeing a completely different character too. Like she played, like her character in this versus her character in Creed or in Sorry to Bother You. It's like and then jumping to Thor to Ragnarok too is like just she's really one of our best young actresses, I would say, and she's really seeing she's in these huge franchises now and isn't afraid to be in like weird movies like Sorry to Bother You or Annihilation. Just rules.
Yeah, absolutely. My number 6 is Love, Simon. And to me, this is the present day John Hughes, basically. It's like a love song to John Hughes in 2018. And I just thought it was really well done, and it sort of hit all of those emotional beats you were expecting it to hit. And with it being more modernized, it wasn't quite as cheesy as some John Hughes movies can be when you go back and watch them now, which I really liked. And it hits on topics that I feel like movies are starting to hit on more now. So
Yes.
it just really felt like it sort of got out front of that. And Greg Berlanti was involved with this movie, and I don't know when that dude sleeps, because he does like all of the CW DC shows, and
Oh
he
my
does
God,
Blind
yeah.
Spot, and I don't even know what else he's doing. But this was something that was refreshing to see. And it kind of reminded me along the lines of watching Lady Bird the year before. And you sort of just get this really fun coming of age story that still hits you with all the feels, basically.
Mhm. Yeah, no, I really liked Love, Simon. I think it was like, it's number 28 on my list, but it's like in that like kind of trough of movies that I really, really enjoyed, but didn't like put as one of my favorites. But yeah, I think for what it is, it's like kind of the best possible version of what it is, like as a cliche like teenage rom-com, because I thought that it actually was legitimately funny. It had like a great story. The lead was good. The issues that it dealt with were topical, and I think it did a very good job at what it was. And I think it really, people loved that movie earlier in the year. It was yeah, I definitely enjoyed it. I think as much as I could enjoy it, which is saying something, because I was watching it, I was looking at trailers for it going, but yeah, my friend made me go watch it, and we had a really fun time. And I think it's and I hope it could be that movie for a lot of teens that are struggling with issues like this, or that movie that people watch with their parents just to be like, see, it's normal. They made a cliche Hollywood rom-com about it. It's fine.
Yeah.
And I think we saw a lot of that in the last couple of years. You've seen just like, whether it just like Hollywood figuring out that diversity is a thing and people will watch it, like whether it's with like Black Panther, Crazy Rich Asians, you just see a lot of these just like other groups getting slotted into traditional Hollywood movies, and I think that is cool.
Yeah, and your number 6 and my number 5 have our highest ranking horror movie on this list. And I understand why this is something that would make your list, but Halloween wasn't necessarily something you'd be into, because this is definitely a different type of horror movie. It's not going off of one of the big horror franchises, which, you know, you have Halloween, you have Freddy, you have Jason, you have, you know, some other stuff, Chucky. There are a lot,
like
and
these
there are a lot
characters.
of movies for each of those franchises. But to get something like Hereditary in the horror genre is just pretty refreshing too. It's one of those things where you have this complete story, and it's a horrible, sad story
Oh my God.
too. And you add sort of this supernatural horror religious element to it. I don't even know what you would call it necessarily. There were so many things going into this movie, and you were like, oh, okay, wow, that was a lot to take in right now.
Oh my God. And yeah, I'm glad you liked it, because I've seen a lot of people I've seen the ending and the like the way that the supernatural stuff, I'm not gonna really spoil it, but like the way that the ending and the supernatural stuff is incorporated into the movie, I think cheesed off a lot of people.
Yeah.
Because it kind of, if you didn't expect it, it really goes there. It really goes to a weird place. And if you don't see it coming, it's really gonna throw you for a loop, I'd say. But yeah, I think Hereditary just has this really well done family drama. It's really, because it's basically just a family drama that has just freaky, scary shit attached to it.
Yeah.
Sometimes. But Toni Collette's performance in this is, oh my God, I don't know how I can look at her the same way again after the looks that she gave at me in this movie. She is, Jesus Christ. I saw this, I only saw this movie once, and I saw it in theaters, and it was the most, just watching this movie with like a full theater was just like the most tense thing I think I've ever been a part of. The ending is so, like, when she's, well, I guess I am spoiling it, but there's a couple scenes where she like goes demony, and like she's like scurrying across like the roof or the ceiling, or where she's like creeping across. She's like, there's a scene that's one of my favorite shots of the year where it's like him, and it like just, you sort of just, she's just hanging from the ceiling in the corner of the room, and the teenage son is in front, and it's just goes on for so long that you just want to die.
Yeah.
Until she finally pops up. Oh my god, yeah, Hereditary I think is 5 star. It's a masterpiece for the horror genre, I think, and it's a debut. It's a first time director made this, and I, yeah, if you like horror at all, if you don't get scared, if you don't get too scared, I think you need to watch it. It's just an incredible horror movie, and this is coming from a person who you could say probably kind of hates horror movies.
Right.
But yeah, just the and I think I was kind of on board with all the stuff. I don't know how much we haven't really talked about it, but how much you were on board with like them setting up like the logo of the cult, the insignia, or how the people show up, or all that weird stuff that happened. Did you see it coming? Did you kind of see the twists and stuff, or what did you think?
I think as soon as Anne Dowd's character sort of saw the light in the medium and everything like that, it really reminded me of the role she played in Leftovers.
Okay.
So I was like, oh, okay, I think I know where
Like,
this is
what's
going
going on?
based on that, because it was a similar role for her, but she does play a different character. You know, there's that loss in the Leftovers, and there's that religious culty
Oh,
crazy group. So it really felt like her character was going along those lines again. And, you know, when Toni Collette notices the welcome mat and makes that comment, oh, my mom used to make those.
mhm.
And then you sort of get to piece things together along the way. And I think
It
that's
gives you everything, but
yeah.
only certain people are going to notice it. I think if you don't like, I don't want to like say if you don't know how to watch films. I think if you are really paying attention, I think it because they're. I don't know if you noticed this, but like that logo, what the little insignia of them is on the pole at the beginning of the movie when they're driving, and you know what happens there. It's actually on.
Okay.
They drive past it, and that logo is on the pole that does some damage.
Yeah, I did not catch that, but as soon as she started going through her mom's stuff and looking at the books and everything like that, I was like, yeah, I see where this is going.
Yep. Great movie. Great movie.
And I think that made me okay with the ending because
Mhm.
you could
Yeah.
see it coming if you
Yeah.
were, you know, sort of paying close enough attention. And not everyone has to pay as much attention as we do in movies, which, you know, that's fine.
Right. But I think that the ending kind of I saw it pissed a lot of people off because they were
Yeah.
like, that came out of nowhere. I didn't expect that at all. And I'm like, no, you could totally. It was all those clues, and it was great. It was perfect.
Yeah.
But and yeah, it takes a weird turn. I like that it had that element of. I think an element of like unexpected weirdness is key to any good horror movie. Just something that is just not of the typical things you see in movies really has to be present for you to really get into it. Have you done? What else should we talk about?
Let's go to your number 5 because it is very, very different. And I'm kind of excited to hopefully see it. I mean, it's very different from Hereditary, that is.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. They're both weird. But the favorite is probably my favorite of the like movies getting awardsy love right now. It
Okay.
has three just incredible all-in performances from the lead actresses. It's kind of like a three and a half if we're throwing in Nicholas Hoult because he's great in this movie too. Woman show. And it's Olivia Colman, Rachel Weisz, and Emma Stone, who are all up for awards. And it's the director of The Lobster and The Killing of the Sacred Deer and Dogtooth, who's making this movie. And it's a period drama / comedy about this queen who's kind of nutty in like I want to say like 1800s England, and it's about these two women who are like vying for her favor. They're like vying to be her because she's sort of cuckoo. So there's a lot. So they're kind of trying to take advantage of her and get to power. And it's very funny. It's very mean. It's very vitriolic kind of movie. It's the best. It's shot really weirdly. It has all these weird lenses and pans going on and lots of weird medieval, I keep saying weird, medieval debauchery. Like there's a scene where they're racing ducks that's shot so strangely. There's a scene where they're hucking oranges at this dude who looks like James Corden. It's a perfect movie. It's another perfect movie. It's just a big crowd pleaser, I'd say, that I can't get enough of. The performances and just everything about it is the best. It's so funny. It's paced so well. It's has the performances are great, and it kind of morphs into a kind of it takes a twist where it kind of turns into like a love story at the end, which is very interesting. It wasn't what I was expecting, because you kind of expect it to zig, and it's kind of zags. But yeah, The Favorite is definitely my favorite of the bunch of awardsy movies out right now. So check it out, Deanna.
Yeah, this was, like I said, one of the ones that I intended to go see in theater, and then it just disappeared, and I was like, oh, okay, all right, that was fast.
Yeah, it's weird. In LA, I feel like it's so different from everywhere else, because like movies
Yeah.
will get longer runs. They'll come out here first. They'll come out multiple times. It's weird.
And you know me, I'm too lazy to drive up to LA just to see a movie. I don't
Yeah,
even
I mean,
want to drive up to LA to go to shows anymore. I'm just like,
yeah,
no.
no, it's horrible.
Who wants to sit in rush hour to go to a show for a few hours and then have to drive all the way back and spend more time in your car?
I feel it, man. I feel it.
Which it is nice that the AMC that's only a few miles away typically will get a lot of these movies. They just don't get them for as long. So I think we'll talk about some 2019 anticipated movies and movie goals as soon as we're done with this list. But that's something I'm going to work on. But my number 4 is Black Panther. I just really loved how this sort of transcended the superhero genre, and
Yeah.
it was just such a big movie. And even if money wise Infinity War did better or whatever, I don't really care about that. I think Black Panther had a much bigger effect just in
Absolutely.
general, and it has one of the best villains that we have seen in, I think, pretty much any superhero movie since Heath Ledger's Joker, maybe.
Yeah, I'd put him up there for sure. He's very charismatic, and Michael B. Jordan is Killmonger. He's kind of. The first time I watched the movie, I was like, wait, he's kind of right, though.
Yeah. That's what makes him such a good villain, too, though.
Mhm.
It's like you can sympathize with him way
Absolutely.
more than you can with Ultron or, some of these
God,
villains
yeah.
where you're like, no,
Yeah,
bye.
that's the major criticism of Marvel movies, like as a whole, is their lack of good villains. And I think in the last like year, they've sort of addressed it with Killmonger, and then kind of going into Thanos. Thanos is this whole other thing. I think he was a good villain. But yeah, definitely. I liked Black Panther. I don't think I liked it quite as much as everyone else. I thought it was I know what it did, and I think it's very important, and I think
Right.
it had elements of it that were super kick ass. But I don't know. I thought it was, for me, it was kind of just like a by the numbers Marvel movie that just happened to be the first of its kind to feature a black cast, and that's awesome. I love that, but I don't know, something about it. I think I think the villain is probably one of my favorite parts of it. I think he he is dangerously more charismatic than Chadwick Boseman.
Yeah.
But yeah, Black Panther was tight.
And obviously, our lists are reflecting what we enjoyed watching the most. So, it's one thing to understand the importance of a movie and another to enjoy it as much as we've enjoyed some of these. And I think that's totally fine. It's like, as long as people understand why Black Panther was important, I don't care if, they didn't enjoy it as much as I did.
I mean, and it's still like a giant superhero movie, so
Yeah.
Yeah, I always see all of them, and I always enjoy all of them. I have a question for you.
Okay.
How do you feel the people making Aquaman felt when they watched Black Panther, considering their stories are the same?
Yeah, because it is sort of this familial dispute in
Mhm.
both of them, and
Mhm.
whether or not that is apparent from the start for everyone else in Black Panther. I think because of them introducing Aquaman in Justice League, well, they actually introduced him in Batman v Superman, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh,
He
brother.
had a little cameo there, but we saw him outside of his rightful place, basically. So introducing him that way, it's like, okay, eventually when we get that solo Aquaman movie, we know we're going to have to go to Atlantis.
Yeah.
You can't not go to Atlantis with Aquaman ever. So I think it is interesting how similar they are.
Yeah, I think it's very funny that they are.
Because they did the same thing with Black Panther for Marvel. We don't see Wakanda the first time we see him. He's representing Wakanda, but he's not there. So, you know, they definitely have similar storylines, but that's how it's always been with Marvel and DC, even with the comics. It's like, okay, you have, you know, this character, you know, in Namor, and then you have Aquaman, and they're like the same character, but Aquaman's more popular, I think. Anyway.
Yeah, for sure.
Then you have a lot of these parallels. Like you have some of the X-Men characters who are similar to the Flash and these other heroes. So there's always been that going on with the comic books themselves. So it doesn't bother me all that much because it's kind of a given. You know, they're competing against each other. They're going to want to have similar characters and similar stories to draw people in.
Yeah, and let's face it, obviously Aquaman is making, like, it's been number one at the box office for like a month now. Right. Obviously people don't care. And Aquaman is also kind of doing a different thing in that it's trying to be like 30 movies at once, whereas Black Panther has a much more focused type of approach where it is like definitely clear like what movie it is from the beginning, and it kind of very much is committed, whereas Aquaman, I felt like some parts I was watching like Rages of the Lost Ark, I felt like some parts I was watching Lord of the Rings, you know, it goes on. But we don't need to talk about that because that's not on either of our lists, and I'm sure you'll talk about it later and talk about that insane movie. Should we talk about the big one, or should I go into my top three? What do you think?
Why don't we go ahead and just sort of finish off our list and then talk about the remaining movies, because we've already talked about Annihilation and Widows on my list, but you have 4 movies left that we have yet to talk about. So go ahead and give those. So
my top 4 are Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, Paddington 2 is number 3, 8th Grade is, there's a lot of numbers in these. 8th Grade is number 2, and First Reformed is first. That's on brand. That's good.
Very fitting. And obviously Spider-Man is number 1 for me. So that rounds out my list. And I'll post our lists in the show notes, because one thing I've noticed when I'm listening to podcasts where they're doing top 10 lists or whatever, I never remember all of the movies by the end of the podcast. And I'm just like, where are your lists?
Yeah. Well, because everyone's like, oh, that's my 5 and that's my 9, and we'll just talk about that first, and da-da-da, and it's just kind of turns into like a mess.
Yeah, so unfortunately with your top 3, I've only seen First Reformed, and that's one I just watched recently too, and it was one of those movies where I understand why so many people liked it, but for me it just didn't hit quite as hard as I was thinking it would. So it's in my honorable mentions. I did give it a 4 out of 5 though, so like I said,
you don't have to feel obligated to like things just because other people like them, but yeah, First Reformed is like, it's the only movie, it's like on another level when it comes to movies that came out this year. It's really, it's tangling, or it's addressing, it's about it's by Paul Schrader, who wrote Taxi Driver and has made a lot of movies. He's very old, but it's about this pastor who becomes radicalized after encountering this radical environmentalist, and it's kind of him struggling with his religion and how it plays into what is happening to the world in terms of global warming, climate change, and it's just sort of him breaking down. It's, for me, it's Ethan Hawke gives this incredible performance, and the movie is really tackling these issues head on that I think are things that people that are going to become very, very, very real and important to us, and it's kind of addressing our oncoming doom in a way, and kind of reckoning with that and reckoning with religion in terms of that. And it's an incredibly challenging movie. It's incredibly well made, and for me is incredibly effective.
Right.
It's shot in this weird claustrophobic box of an aspect ratio.
Yeah. At first I was like, is this right? And then I was like, oh, okay, this is right.
That's on purpose.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like a square box that you're watching, and there's it's pretty much just like stationary cameras of just people talking for most of the movie, and then it kind of takes a turn later on. But yeah, it's really the only movie that's honestly like talking about these issues that I don't see how people ignore them.
Yeah.
I don't see how people like how do you live your life when all this is going on? How do you reckon with this? How do you and especially for him, because he kind of finds out this like pseudo conspiracy um, leading to regarding his line of work. But it's like, how do you will God forgive us? Like how do you live your life? How do you deal with having children? How do you deal with having a career when like you're living in you have such an apocalyptic sense of the world? And I can see that not hitting everybody quite the way it hit me. For me, it's just like a mile ahead of everything else. Like from when I first watched it, I was like, this is my number one. And then that was in like June. And
Yeah.
they're like, I mean, I wish I could, like, Spider-Man is great in a completely different way. And what it's doing is so, like, I can't even compare the two. And then likewise with like 8th Grade and Paddington 2 are also just, they're all such diverse movies that are doing different things and using different tools and telling different stories, and they're all so good and so important to me that I'm so blessed that we got to have all these movies this year. And there's such a, like, last year for me, my favorite movies were like the ones that were nominated for awards. It was like Shape of Water and Lady Bird and Phantom Thread, which were all like the awards movies, but this year it's very different. I don't like the awardsy ones as much, but yeah, that's First Reformed. Check it out. It's on Canopy and Prime because it's an A24 movie. Love A24.
Yeah, I think for me, this was one of those movies where you could definitely see the psychological effects that it was having on the main character in a similar way that you could with You Were Never Really Here. And I think those two were kind of close for me. And I went with You Were Never Really Here just because I like the unique style of that one a little more than I liked First Reformed. And like I said, aside from Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, pretty much everything on my top 10 list, except for A Quiet Place, I gave a 4 out of 5.
Mm-hmm.
So I had a lot of 4 out of 5s this year, and I was very stubborn with 4.5s and 5s because I only gave a 5 to Spider-Man.
Whatever. My freaking 15 through 25 were like all four stars. So yeah, it's, you know, we're talking about Letterboxd here, people. If you're not familiar,
we'll also link to that because it's a wonderful movie app. So
yeah, it's the best. Go on Letterboxd, follow us.
But I know 8th Grade is one that I missed out on. I think it was one of those things where it also had a weird release as far as a wide release. And I think I had Movie Pass at the time still when this came out. And for whatever reason, I was not able to.
Was that during like the great Movie Pass collapse of
pretty much? I think so.
Yeah, when it just kind of stopped working for everyone at once.
But this one is coming to Prime relatively soon if it already isn't up there. I didn't see it when I was looking for some of the movies to watch.
I think it goes up on the 13th. It'll be on Amazon Prime and Canopy. Shout out A24 again.
Yeah, they're on a roll.
Yeah, 8th Grade rules. It's directed by Bo Burnham, the comedian. Basically just a very honest portrayal of what being in 8th grade is in the current moment, what being a teenager is, how you deal with school, social media, just the social atmosphere of that movie, how the internet affects these young people. And it just features just this truly devastating and real performance from Elsie Fisher. She got nominated. She's like 15, 16, and she got nominated for a Golden Globe for lead actress, which is very deserved. That was like one of the only things I was stoked on for that. And it's just amazing how she can just turn on this like weird sort of confidence, but you also are cripplingly self-doubting, and you're like trying to do something but you don't know how to do it. And she just is it's so real. It's like you're watching her real life. It's just like she can turn it on for this movie. And it just really, if you were a certain age, it really is such an accurate portrayal of like scrolling on the internet. I don't think I've ever seen somebody do, aside from maybe searching, somebody do scrolling on the internet the way this does it. And it's very funny. It's very rough emotionally, depending on how much you're going to relate to the characters and how much you grew up with this sort of thing. I know there were people that I watched it with that are afraid to watch it again because of how heavy it hit them. But it's a very wonderful, joyous movie. It's also another incredible debut directing a film for Bo Burnham, and it has a lot of his trademark sense of humor. If you're familiar with him as a comedian, he's truly a really talented director. I think he's kind of leaving comedy behind, and he's going to focus more on directing. And if it keeps giving us movies like this, I'm going to be so happy. You'll watch it, you'll love it. Go check out 8th Grade. It's going to be on your streaming services soon.
Yeah, and I know you are upset with me about not watching the Paddington movies yet, so I will put that at the top of my list. Don't worry. I think Paddington 2 is streaming on HBO or something, but I don't think the first one is.
The first one was on Netflix for a while. I don't know if they took it off. I can check, actually. So Paddington 2 is my number 3. It came out like a year ago. It's a wonderful, wonderful, beautiful, sweet, hilarious kids movie about a CGI bear. Yeah, it does look like they took it off of Netflix. That sucks. CGI bear living in London who make his I call him a superhero because his superpower is friendship and his weakness is everything. He gets into lots of shenanigans, and it's just this it's like a kids movie masterpiece. I don't know when I saw a kids movie that resonated with me like this, because it's just so beautiful and heartwarming and funny and sweet and has great inclusive themes at the heart of it. It also has this absolutely dynamite performance from Hugh Grant plays the villain. He plays this like old London theater guy who's like trying to reclaim his glory and keeps doing different characters, and it's so good. But yeah, there are sequences in this movie that are some of my favorite things I've seen in any movie ever. There's this part at the very beginning that's like this stylized pop-up book like montage that is just completely inspired. I don't know. I've watched this movie like 4 or 5 times this year. Every time I'm like, is it going to drop for me? And then it doesn't. So Paddington is my best friend. He's the namesake of my trivia team. And I don't know what else to say. I don't feel like I want to convince people to like this movie, but like, if you don't, then that's your loss, man. If you have kids at all and you're listening to this, I think it is one of the best children's movie of the last decade, certainly the best live action one. And it's just very nice and sweet. And I think we need some of that in our day to day. And it's very much a bright spot for me. It's like a comforting movie for me. And I don't know. I've already talked about Paddington so much this year. But yeah, in the desert that is children's entertainment, I feel like Paddington is an oasis.
And it does seem like a movie that a lot of people have enjoyed, whether it's critics or just, parents taking their kids to it or whatever. And I think the same can be said for our final movie on our list to talk about, which is Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, because this is Sony really diving into not only the Spider-Man characters that they have the rights to, but just this whole animated world that you wouldn't be able to sort of represent in the same way in a live action film. And I think they took that to the extreme with this, because you have different textures with the animation. You have these different styles based on whatever character is being portrayed. And I think that's something that just visually really stood out. And this was literally putting comic book pages on a ginormous screen in front of your face and animating it. And I think that's why so many people have loved this, because, you can watch something like Incredibles 2, which I also enjoyed this year, but it wasn't quite as groundbreaking. They kind of kept that same feeling that we've had with Pixar movies for the last, 10, 15 years, give or take. And this just sort of took the animation to a level that I don't think will be easy for other companies to replicate either. So it's just something that felt so unique to the genre.
Yeah. Well, okay. So Sony they invented literally a new style of animation for this movie. They CGI'd everything. They CGI'd the entire movie, and then they hand drew over it in Adobe to create the look and feel of that universe. And they are trying to copyright that animation style, labor intensive as it may be. We'll see if they can do that. I hope they don't, because that's kind of evil. But yeah, I've never seen an animated movie that moves the way this one does. It's a whole, it's complete, it's in a league of its own when it comes to animation, and it's literally the highest rated movie on Letterboxd this year, which is pretty tight. Because it's a masterpiece, and there's no other way to look at it. It's basically, I would say plot-wise, it kind of reminds me of like the Lego Movie, because it is the same producers, Phil Lord and Miller. And I know that Phil Lord was really, when they got I heard that when they got kicked off of the Solo movie, that they really went in on this movie, especially Phil Lord, I think really took charge of the story of this movie and was really what made it work. But yeah, it's hilarious. It's heartfelt. It crams so much into it in terms of like characters and story and interesting flourishes, and everything is just nailed. They just nailed it on every level. It's the music is great. The animation is obviously great. The voice cast and acting is inspired. Like Jake Johnson is super good as a like
middle-aged Peter Parker,
middle-aged fat dad's regretful Spider-Man. And then they have all these fun cameos and other characters, like all the other Spider-Men from the other universes are so fun. They have Nick Cage and John Mulaney as them. I've watched this movie with different people every time, and we've all enjoyed it, like kind of for different reasons, but kind of all for the same reason, because it just is it's a perfect movie. It's really showing that when you feel like the superhero genre is stagnant or isn't going anywhere, like this movie comes to kick you in the freaking face when you think the Spider-Man movies are going to be the Venomverse, like this thing comes out, or just when you think that an animated superhero movie can't make a ton of money like this. I don't know how much money it's making, but it's the best. It rules. I wish in a lesser year it would be my number one, or if I was younger it would probably be my number one, because I truly do love it. I've seen it 3 times now, and I think this one would actually be an interesting one to check out in 3D. Did you see it in 3D?
I did not.
I think this would be, just because I'd be curious as to what they do with it, you know.
I feel like it might give me a headache, so
there's always
I've been a little reluctant to try and go see 3D movies, but
this is one of the only ones that I'd be like just at least curious about.
Yeah, so I looked, and it's made $275 million worldwide so far. And for an animated movie, that's pretty good, and I don't think Sony can really complain about that result, because people are still going out to see it. Like you said, you've seen it 3 times. I've been tempted to go back and see it, but I'm really bad at watching things more than once, so
that's okay. We'll watch it when it comes out on whatever.
Yeah, I can definitely see people buying this one like crazy, just because it feels so rewatchable.
Oh, absolutely. Every fiber of this movie has like it's one thing I was thinking about. It's like the perfect combination of like having so many fan Easter eggs and having just being like total fan service at every but it also like doesn't matter. Like none of it matters.
And it's diverse too. I think that's something that really hits home, because you have, some Spanish in this movie and it's not even subtitled. And I actually kind of like that, because it's not enough for you to really need to know what's being said if you don't understand Spanish, but you get sort of this essence of what Miles Morales' home life is like. It's like, his mom will just go blurting something out in Spanish, and it's normal.
Yeah, they code switch like that. Yeah, it's the best. It rules. I think it's my favorite superhero movie, and it's not even close this year. Like, I think anybody who hasn't seen it in the theater should try to go out and see it in the theater, because I think that you need to let yourself have that at least once, just because it is like, it's literally something you've never seen before. I can't really say that about anything else on this list. You have never seen a movie that looks like this in your life.
Yeah, it was so great. I was so happy when I went to go see it.
Yeah, it kicks so much ass. It's the best.
Yeah, well, we've been going on for quite a while here, so I want to
Yeah.
quickly touch on the worst movie we both watched this year. Mine was some movie on Netflix that my mom and I decided to watch one night, and it's called Edge of Fear. It has several Prison Break alumni, so I was like, all right, I'll try it out. It was so bad. It was so bad. I was like, no, thank you.
Fear. I haven't even heard of this one. The Edge of Fear. Wait, this is like a. Is it like a? Oh, it is this. Okay, is it like an Asian movie?
There is an Asian couple in it, so I think it was some sort of co-production. And then, yeah, I don't know the details of its release or anything, but I saw it was from 2018. I was like, did this even come out in theaters? I'm not convinced it did.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I haven't even heard of this one. You're the only person on my letterbox that has watched it, so yikes.
Yeah, so sometimes we just pick bad movies on Netflix to watch, and it's a thing that happens, and it's fine.
I don't want to. I could talk about this movie a lot too. It's so funny. I had my two friends that are on my trivia team. We all had the same number one, which was First Reformed, and we all had the same bottom one, which was called Welcome to Marwen. And I think it's still in theaters. And please don't see it, or do, because it is the one of the worst movies I've ever seen in my entire life. We went to a preview screening of it, and we were sitting in we kind of got there late, so we were kind of in the front row. But we were just like in awe of this movie. It stars Steve Carell. It's by Robert Zemeckis, who you may know as the filmmaker behind like Castaway and Forrest Gump, but you'll probably more know if you watch this movie as the filmmaker behind The Polar Express.
Okay.
And Christmas Carol. And it's Steve Carell stars as this no, he's not even a military vet. He's this guy he was this artist who gets brutally attacked by this gang of Nazis, this gang of neo-Nazis, and is left with really bad PTSD and has lost a lot of his memories because of his brain damage. And he finds solace in the constructing of a model, like dollhouse-sized village, like a World War II style village in his backyard. And that sounds cozy and heartwarming. It's based on a true story. It's based on a documentary called Marwen Call. But this movie just starts there and goes wrong in every possible way. It's like it's a calamity on every level. It's his performance is bad. The dolls are it's like him and then a bunch of like women that are it's like this squad of like commando women that are all based on people that he has met, keyword met, in his life, not even like his friends, just people that he met once. Just like, yeah, like, and it's like this movie like takes things that are like insanely creepy and plays them as like cute, sweet things. Like I wish I could do a whole podcast on this movie. It's so tremendously bad. But like the direction is horrible. The comedy doesn't work. It's an exhaustingly calamitous disaster of a movie that has a very troubling message about like PTSD and mental illness and like how people with that should handle that. And it is just disgusting. It is a disgusting movie. It is a failure on every level. Everyone who was involved with this movie should be ashamed. And I could go more into that, but I don't feel like being negative. I like geeking out on more positive stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I'm not going to say don't watch it because it is good to like know who the enemy is. Like in terms of, okay, this is a bad movie. Like it's good to know like, okay, that was horrible. But yeah, Welcome to Marwen. Total failure. Bad.
Yeah, I have no intentions of going to see this in theater. I think there are still plenty of other things for me to catch up on to where I won't need to feel obligated to go see this. But yeah, I definitely saw some of your tweets and stuff about it, so I was like, oh, okay, maybe not.
No, Welcome to Marwen. Oh my god.
Yeah, I don't know if you do this or not, but I've been seeing a lot of people setting movie goals, and this is something I do more so with books. I use Goodreads and I'll set a goal in there for the reading challenge or whatever, but for me, I kind of just want to use my AMC A-list a little more than I have been. I've been trying to go at least like 3 times a month, so it kind of pays for itself because it's $20 a month, and I think it's going to go up at some point after I've had it for 12 months because I don't remember why, but it's going up like $6 or something in 7 months for me.
Yeah, I think my friend who just signed up for it said that it's gonna, I think, it stays the same for like a chunk of time, and then
Yeah.
it's probably gonna change. But movie goals for 2018, I think I want to watch more probably old movies, because I feel like there's a lot
Same.
of directors that I am like, oh, I really love this one movie by them, but I haven't seen all these other movies, and I really want to sort of start delving into filmographies. There's a really good podcast I like called Blank Check, where they talk about they'll just take a director and then watch every movie in the filmography and discuss it. And I really like that idea, and it is one of my favorite podcasts. So I think that is a good tool to get me to like a good, because I can like watch a movie, listen to the podcast, watch a movie, listen to the podcast. So I think that's like a fun thing that I'll try to do this year a little bit more. My watching of movies is going to be directly tied to like how my movie pass continues, and if
Yeah.
it cancels on me or stops working, which is very likely, or if I switch to AMC. So we'll see. But yeah, that's about all I've got.
I feel like most of mine is going to be dominated by all the Stephen King movies I have to watch. So that is something.
That's an
Yeah,
endeavor.
that is something that will happen.
Is there like a number for like how many of those there are? Or they're like,
I have a spreadsheet. I can find out.
good morning. Should we talk about any? I mean, I feel like I don't know which movies are going to be my favorite movies. We could just talk about like the big releases, which are like all Disney movies.
Yeah. I think as far as anticipated movies go, I'm really excited to see how Us turns out from Jordan Peele, because Get Out was so big. And I think aside from, the typicals, like you said, Disney superhero movies and that stuff, that's sort of what I'm looking forward to the most, and finally getting to see Destroyer once that wide release happens, because Nicole Kidman looks fantastic in that, and she's having quite a run too. She's in that. She was in Boy Erased, which I wanted to see but didn't, and then Aquaman, which
what a friggin' weird year for her. What a trio.
Yeah, but I think that sort of goes to show that people are willing to, and that she's willing to take on these different roles, because from what I can tell, all three of those roles are distinctly different.
From what I can tell, you're right. Yeah, and that's like coming right off of last year. She was in Killing of a Sacred Deer, Beguiled, and what's it called? Big Little Lies.
Yes.
So
I still have to watch Big Little Lies. I have TV things that I need to get to as well.
I think you'd like it. Yeah.
So much content, so little time.
But yeah, then there's like the obvious, like there's Star Wars, and the Godzilla movie looks tight. There's like
Detective Pikachu,
yes. And Sonic. Who knows what those will be like. I'm really stoked. The Lego movie, the first one, was one of my favorite movies. Is one of my favorite movies of all time. And so there's the second one of those. That's different directors, but it'll still be fun, I'm sure. Of course, your Avengers. I'm kind of worried about Captain Marvel.
Yeah, I'm all in on the Marvel movies at this point, because I think it helps when you've read some of the comics too. And recently, Captain Marvel was one of the comics that I just really love, that, and Miss Marvel. Okay. I kind of wish there was a Miss Marvel movie coming. I don't know if that's in the works, because Marvel plans so far ahead. Yeah, Stretchy Girl. Marvel plans so far ahead, though, that I think they have through like 2025 planned out or something ridiculous.
Oh yeah, and they like haven't said like what any of them are. They're just like, there's 4 movies this year, 5 movies this year, 3 movies this year, 4 movies.
Exactly.
Just like, and they like can't say any of them until then the Avengers movie happens, which is pretty wild that it's such a safe bet that they can just be like, we're doing all these and we're not going to tell you anything about them until this other movie happens.
Yeah, and I think 2019 could also be the year DC finally gets back on track a little more, if they nailed the tones of both Wonder Woman 1984 and Shazam, which I think they have a good chance at doing that.
Is Wonder Woman this year? Is that this year? I thought it...
Or it's 2020.
I think I pushed back to 2020, yeah.
What else is... Joker's this year, isn't it? With Joaquin Phoenix.
Oh, God, that Joker. I don't know. But yeah, there's a lot of stuff.
Disney keeps announcing and changing their schedule that I find it harder to keep track of their stuff.
I just know that they have a truly overwhelming number of movies coming out this year that I can't even start to think about, because they're going to have Avengers, Lion King, which is probably going to be the biggest movie of all time, Toy Story, Frozen 2, Star Wars. Total monopoly of culture, Disney. But yeah, get ready for those. Get pumped. Go watch movies this year. Get your AMC, get your movie pass out. Go watch some movies.
Well, you might be happy to know that there might be another Teen Titans Go movie this year.
Oh yeah, I read that they're doing some kind of something.
Yeah.
I don't know exactly
It's
what it is.
Teen Titans Go versus Teen Titans, and it just says late 2019. So who knows? But Shazam is in April, Joker October.
Ugh, I want to believe in Joaquin Phoenix, but yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, definitely. Well, Mitchell, I think we have covered a lot here.
Oh boy.
There are a lot of movies that we still didn't even talk about either, too. So, you know, I did do an episode on Venom, though, so that's covered. That's been covered. We didn't need to talk about it.
Venom was bad and fun. Bad fun.
Yeah.
Movie. Oh god, that was horrible movie, but so fun. But yeah, it was great talking to you, Deanna. Thanks for watching all those movies I told you to watch, and I'm glad you enjoyed.
I still have a few to get to, but I know you mentioned maybe wanting to talk more in depth about some of these. So, you know, I have to have you on the podcast more often. It's been months since we've done a podcast, and that was a total epic fail on my part last year. So I will text you about some potential solo episodes we can do for some of these movies.
Cool. Love to.
Awesome. And to our listeners, thank you for sticking with us this long. This is one of the longer episodes we've had in a while, but there was a lot to discuss. So I think it called for it. So, you know,
sure. Hopefully they think that's true.
Hopefully they agree with us. But if you've made it this far, thank you for listening, and we hope you enjoy the rest of your day.